morning, everybody. Just want to start off by saying thanks. We appreciate your time. Thanks for hopping on this call. As most of you know, this is a follow-up to the meetings we had earlier this year, where we'll share out a little bit more information or any updates that we have. I'm just going to go over, my name is Les Fletcher. For those of you who don't know, I work in the E-Construction group here at headquarters, and so I'll kind of be hosting the meeting today. So just go over a couple of Zoom rules. Unfortunately, this is not the best place for open discussion Q&A, but we do want to take your questions and answer them as we have the opportunity. So if you could, in the chat, if you have questions, please enter your questions in that chat box, and we will try to answer them there. Or maybe if we have time at the end, we will answer some of them at the end, kind of live. And so if you could do that. We're also taking constructive comments, not necessarily a question, so you can drop those in the chats as well, and we'll compile those after this and kind of take a look at them as a group. So one thing we would love for you all to, if you have cameras, please turn them on. It just makes the meetings more engaging. We're trying to do that as a section. As you can see, we all have our cameras on, and so we'd love to be able to see you while we do this. And then also, we want to make sure that you are muted. So please make sure that you're muted during the entirety of this meeting. We have the ability to help out there if needed. So if you guys come off mute, we'll be able to take care of that for you as well. The suggested view for this is the speaker view. It'll give you the best opportunity to see the PowerPoint that we have presented here, and also see the speaker that is talking. We are recording this meeting, as you can tell, and this will be uploaded to our construction YouTube page for review later, or even passing around to people who, other people in your group that might need to see it. We will also be sending out a document, not necessarily this PowerPoint, but a document that has more details of what we're going to go over today, with helpful links and stuff like that for you. And just to give you a document to refer back to that might be a little easier than the YouTube video. So with all of that said, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Brian Owens, and he's going to give you a short introduction, and he'll get started in the meeting. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah. All right. So good morning. As Les said, this is our first webinar as a section talking to everyone. This is the follow-up to the spring in-person meeting, our old shade tree and construction roundups now. So this is our chance to meet on a monthly basis, which we're going to continue doing every 30 days. And this is going to be an update to what we talked about in the spring, as well as progress on those issues, and then any issues that have come up in that time frame. And then we're going to repeat this again in 30 days, and we'll continue to do that until we have our in-person meetings in October again. And we already have those scheduled. We'll be sending those out to everyone shortly. So we're going to hear from our headquarters construction section today. We're going to hear from our E-Construction team and our materials lab. And you're probably going to have questions as we go through this. Again, we're asking that you put those in the chat. It's difficult to manage, 100 people on a call. So we're going to do our best to get through this. We appreciate everyone's attendance, and we'll get started. So thank y'all. So I've got a couple of slides to get started. The main reason we met in the spring was to talk about change orders, estimates, and prompt payments or timely payments. And since then, we've seen a lot of progress on that front. And we've had a couple of issues that we're going to talk about today, and some new issues as well. So first thing that we've been seeing with change orders is budget verification. So you've got the PM cannot actually set the funding up until the change order is approved. But what we're asking our project engineers to do, and what's part of our template, is that you reach out to your PM and you make sure that that funding is available so they can reach out to their program manager. We're going to talk a little bit more about that today in our RFCO update process, and Matt's going to talk about that as well. The biggest thing to take away there is that we need to make sure that we're not looking for budget after the fact, after this work has been done and no one has reached out to the PM, because we've seen a lot of those in the last couple of months, and we're just encouraging that you guys get in touch with them. As far as design changes, we've got a few change orders that have come through the last couple of weeks and months where there were changes made to hydraulics on pipes, on box culverts, on roadways, on typical sections, and the requisite design group was not brought in to get approvals on those. So we're asking that you come through headquarters construction, through your area engineer, and reach out to those individuals and make sure that we get those approvals and reviews prior to doing the work and prior to processing the change orders. Our change order templates that we passed out in the spring, everyone seems to be using them now. They're really helping. Our review times are being cut down. I'll show that in a slide a little bit later. I would encourage everyone to continue using those, and if you're not, please start. We've had an update on our RFCO forms, which is our request for change order. Our secretary has become more involved on the innovative procurement side of change orders, and everything's being escalated to a category 1 where he'll be reviewing those. And in doing so, we went through and took the opportunity to update all of those forms. And Matt Jones is going to talk a little bit more in depth about those in a little bit. Again, our template utilization has been great on change orders. We thank everybody for that and continue using them. And I'm going to talk a little bit about estimates and change order data. So estimate handling time and change order handling time. So these are our estimate counts from January to August of this year. Looks like we average about 250 estimates per month. And we met with you guys back in the spring. And as you can see, the graph at the bottom, I hope you can see these. We're going to send them out if not, but you have your average handling time on the left, and those are in days. So at the bottom, you've got January, February, March, so on and so forth. And you can see that we're trending down on our handling times, and our averages, each of those representatives there, the office manager, the project engineer, the contractor, all of those handling times have been reducing. So that's great news. It seems like we're headed in the right direction. We want to continue to reduce those times and make sure everybody's aware. We talked a lot about that in the spring, about what are the pitfalls, what are the things that need to be turned in, either that's from a contractor perspective, from the audit perspective, all these things that need to be done. And if you're unsure, or if we're still having issues on specific projects, just reach out to us, guys. And we'd like to see those those handling days reduce even further and, expedite and make this process more efficient. Our change order handling times have also reduced. So we've got a total on the left. This is our average change order counts per month. Category 1's about 28, looks like. Category 2's 50. And then category 3 change orders up around 90. That's our average from December of last year through this month. If you look at the category 1 change order, category 2 and 3 on the right of the slide, you have average handling days. And again, you have the contractor, the PE, the area engineer, chief construction engineer, so forth and so on. And as you can see, all of those are trending downward. That's what we'd like to see. So again, we talked to you guys, everybody came together. It looks like we're making progress. These were the main things that industry wanted us to look at: change order estimates and payments. And, it looks like we're headed in the right direction. There's probably still some one-off issues, and we're going to work together to get those moving forward. So, kudos to everybody. Appreciate the hard work, and we're going to continue to make those better.
Thanks, Brian. And next we're going to have Matt Jones is going to come on and give us a discussion on some more of these topics. Matt.
All right. I'm Matt Jones. I'm the construction administrator. Been with the department since 2006. Hopefully most of y'all know who I am. Want to reiterate what Brian said. We appreciate everybody being on the webinar today. Again, this is our first one, so there might be a few hiccups, that sort of thing. But bear with us. We'll try to get through all this stuff and continue to revamp it, revise it, and improve upon it. I do want to kind of give a plug for Les and Patrick. They do a webinar each month for e-construction. So if y'all are not watching those, please take the time to log in each month and take a look at those. It helps with, they help out with headlight, they talk about, various, topics, how to do observations, how to do samples, things like that. So, take a look at those. I think those are also on the YouTube page. To kind of get into this part, 10904 TRO spec. We did talk about that back at the construction roundup meetings. Again, because we are the government, we love our acronyms. For those that don't know, TRO is time-related overhead. So my understanding is that FHWA has signed off on this specification at this point. So we are hoping to roll out in probably as soon as the October letting, some pilot projects to utilize the TRO specification. What we did with the TRO spec is we have modified the 10904 specification and changed up the negotiated price spec to a forward pricing force account. So there's no more price it as you bid it. What you'll end up doing is you'll have the opportunity to bid your time-related overhead, your job site overhead costs for a particular project so that it's already in the contract. We don't have to go through, look at bid documents, open books, anything like that. It's a competitively bid sort of thing. And then the markups are set. So for TRO projects, there'll be a 10% markup on those change orders, along with, if there's a time component, whatever was bid for the TRO item. For non-TRO projects, it's set at 15%, which is the same as our forward or the force account specification, where you get a 15% markup for job site, home office, and profit. So we just moved that over to the forward pricing and force account, the former negotiated price. So that's kind of where we are with that. Again, it's been approved by FHWA, so we should be able to get that included for October lettings for certain pilot projects. We still need to look and verify which projects we will end up selecting, but that's where we're moving forward with that. The RFCO form, similar to what Brian said, request for change order form. So with the inclusion of the innovative procurement projects, administration wanted some information ahead of time on any potential change orders to know, costs, time impacts, things like that. So we've created a form based off of the RFI form, very similar. Contractors will fill out this RFCO form with, the time associated with the change order, the cost associated with the change order, a brief description of what the change order entails. That'll then move forward to the project engineer for them to review it, determine whether or not the request for change order has entitlement. So does it make sense? Do we think it is a change order that contractor should be compensated for? If there is entitlement, then you'll also review the cost component of it as well as the time component of it. If you're good with all of those, it'll move forward to the next level. And what we're doing is we're having it go to the highest approval level, which we already have that. In 10402, it talks about verbal approval, but following up with written verification of that verbal approval. So what we're doing with the RFCO is we're doing that written portion of it. So we're not really doing verbal approvals. We want to run this up the chain to the highest level, get that approval on the front end, and then have that change order completed prior to the finish of the work. So once you get the approval up to that highest level, you can get started on the work, but we need to have that change order, filled out, going through the approval process prior to that work finishing. That way we can get contractors paid, that sort of thing. It's not out at this point. We're working with the publications group on revising an EDSM so that we have the full process in place as well as the form, but once that is done, excuse me, once that's done, we will put it up on the intranet as well as the internet so that C&I consultants, our OBF for design builds and P3s, things like that, that they have access to the form, as well as the EDSM that kind of goes through the process that I just spelled out. The highest level approval, of course, is a category 1 for your innovative procurement projects. That'll go all the way to the secretary. For our design bid builds, that'll go to the chief's level for approval. If it's a category 2, it'll stay there in the district. The area engineer will sign off on it, that sort of thing. So it's still your normal kind of change order approval process, but it's that verbal approval up through the highest level for each one. So that's where we are with RFCO. That should come out hopefully next week. Like I say, the publications group is working with us on getting all the details ironed out for the EDSM and the process, and we'll start utilizing that on all projects. It should also help with writing change orders. Of course, we have the templates in place. We appreciate y'all utilizing those. It seems to be helping with the approval times, but also based on the descriptions that are provided in the RFCO, you can probably utilize that for your explanation for why this change order is necessary. You can just take that verbiage, put it in the template, and we can move forward with getting these knocked out. Last thing is a bit of sad news and exciting news for Amanda. We're having to reshuffle some district assignments. Amanda is moving back home to Indiana, so we're happy for her. She's been an excellent employee and been a benefit to the department and construction as well. But because of that, we're having to shuffle around some district assignments. Ryan McMillan, he is actually maintaining the districts he already has. So 4, 5, and 61 will still, you'll do change order approvals as well as any escalation procedures, things like that. Claims will go to Ryan for those districts. Sarah is keeping 02 and 08, but we're adding 62 to Sarah's plate. And then Dustin Freeman, who is in our fabrication section, works for Greg Coco. He will be taking over districts 03 and 07. So please include him on any change orders, again, claims, escalations, things like that. And then lastly, Caitlin McMahon will be working on District 58. We're training her to be an area engineer. So please include her on any correspondence, again, change orders, things like that. I will be the one to actually sign off on the change orders. So in site manager, put me down as the approver for headquarters construction. But please include her. We're trying to get her trained up so that, she will be ready and prepared when she becomes a full-time employee.
I appreciate all that info. And next up, we have Sarah Ballmer, who's going to go over a few more construction topics.
Hey, thanks, Les. So I'm going to go over a few topics, but before I go over that, I'm Sarah Ballmer. I'm the area engineer, currently have been the area engineer of 02, 08, and 07, and 58. And like Matt said, 7 is, I won't have 07 no more, and 58. I'm going to transfer or start getting Dustin familiar with everything that I've been working in 07, and Caitlin as well with 58. So to get started, I'm going to go over a few publications and then a few topics that I want people to keep in mind. First of all, the memos. I think you saw that Dallas sent out a couple of memos for the change order execution and work zone police. And the change order execution is, I think it's simply puts that spec in effect, and that spec may be in effect now but it was just to eliminate the paper sign-offs on the change orders, and I haven't seen any of those cross my desk, so I think everybody's utilizing that memo. Work zone police allows it at the contractor's request for us to change order in the specification for the new specification for public convenience and safety. That spec is has been approved and will be effective in September. So just be aware of those memos if you haven't looked at them. And then specifications, I'm going to just go over the main special provisions. This doesn't have a list of all specifications that have been approved. There are a few NS items that have been approved, and if y'all want, I can add them to the list of specs on the sheet that we send out, so you kind of know everything that's been recently approved and has effective dates set for them. So the public convenience and safety, like I said, that spec has been approved by FHWA and will be in effect in September. And so with that update came some terms and definitions updates with them. And I think there's an email that went out on that. Concrete walks and drives, that spec will be in effect in October, and that spec just adds in the curb removal with the removal of sidewalk associated with the curb ramps paid items, so that doesn't get missed. We lumped it in with it. And then the 10702 spec, I believe, just adds a little bit more detail to the OCP reimbursement language, and that's going to be also effective in October. Just to put it in here, there's a EDSM that went in effect in June, and that is just to the policy on standard plan updates, revisions that I think gets funneled through the publications unit. We have the special provision for request for change order. I think that's the claims one, is in effect. It's been in effect since July 10th. E-ticketing, it was out for signature, and so it should be either approved by the chief or going to be approved and sent to FHWA soon. CPM is almost finalized, and we'll be hopefully getting out for signature soon. And then we have the TRO spec, which has been approved by FHWA, and it will have an effective date set soon. So topics of interest, the Roundup PowerPoint, I had some requests to put it out on the intranet page at least, so that people could see and utilize some of the information in it for their change orders. So that is underneath the construction Roundup tab now. And we can send a link to it with the information that we send out after this meeting. I can't really utilize the email groups for to distribute emails because they're not quite up to date. So I don't know who manages them, but if you can find out at your district who manages your particular email group for your district, figure out how to get it reassigned so that you can manage the personnel at your district that receives emails, because I know publication uses it for distribution. A lot of groups use it for distribution. So if they're not up to date, you're not going to get the emails. NTPing projects, I just wanted to mention because I've come up across this multiple times, is that if you need to NTP your projects within 60 days, if for some reason there's an issue where you feel like you would not NTP your project in 60 days, you need to let your area engineer know what the situation is and not wait until after the 60 days to let us know. Really, we want to make sure that we NTP our projects within the 60 days for the specification. CNI timeframe. So the CNI, the CE&I contracts, there's a lot of push for design not to manage the contracts, and it goes on to the PEs. If you need CE&I, please let your project manager on the project know, like as soon as planned in hand. It takes around 6 months sometimes if we don't have a retainer on to get these contracts in motion. And we don't want to let the project without, if you need a CE&I, we want to make sure that we have that in place before we let the project. So just be aware of that to assess, when it's projected to let and be cautious and let your PM know that we'll need to have CE&I. And that's pretty much it for me.
Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate that update. Next up, we have Dallas Ballmer, who will be going over some of the estimates and audits topics.
All right, Dallas Ballmer. I work over estimates, audits, work zone, railroads. I'm involved with CPM also. All right, so from the audit perspective, we've kind of modified the format of the late list. It shows current fiscal year projects, and it shows everything prior to the current fiscal year. The projects that should be the focus for district folks are the projects from fiscal year 23 through 24, which is June 30th, 23. No, July 1st of 2023 to June 30th of 2024. Those will be the projects that legislative audit is going to be looking at. So try to focus on those first. We've split out the current fiscal year, so it's going to be easier to see those and try to maintain those rather than having the long list that we've had for a long while, and then closing out the older projects as you're able to. We are working on a change order template to close out projects. One of the main things I want to excuse me. One of the main things I want to point out on the change order to close out projects is we have a final audit checklist, and we really want to see the PE offices attempt to address all the items on the checklist. Some of those things, even if we don't have all the documents we were supposed to get, some of those items can be addressed and should be addressed when we're closing out these projects. Reconciling quantities and time charges is something that can be done. If you have attempted to reach out to LPA or CE&I, please document that so we have proof that we've made the effort to contact those consultants or local agencies, and either they concur with closing out as is, they provide information saying that they don't have all the documents that we would normally require, and they put that in writing. If they're non-responsive, we want to see that you have made the effort, and that's just showing that the department is doing what it can to close out projects appropriately. If you're having situations where consultants or LPAs are non-responsive, we recommend doing consultant ratings and rating them appropriately. I know there's been reports that CCS doesn't want to see ratings for LPA projects. If they do not accept those ratings, please send them up to headquarters construction so we can communicate that to the third floor, the LPA personnel on the third floor, so that information and feedback can get back to the LPAs and the other people in administration making decisions on future LPA projects. One thing we talked about in the previous round of Roundup meetings is the fiscal year end dates and the transition dates. And one thing I failed to mention, which has become pretty apparent recently, is we mentioned that the state fiscal year ends at the end of June, but what I said at the previous meetings was that lasts from June to mid-July. But there's a process that I did not mention, which is from mid-July to the beginning of August. Any changes to POs have to be done manually. They have to be requested by us to financial services, who then has to request the Department of Treasury to make changes or roll forward the funding on the project. So from mid-July to about the first week of August, anything that requires changes to POs is a manual process that is not as streamlined as our typical process. I can make a bunch of excuses for payment delays. I know Brian's graph showed that we've made improvements, but if you have an estimate on your project that's not getting paid, you don't care about what's happened across the state. You care about that one estimate. So I listed a few excuses for why we've had some delays on estimates. So we recently had the network issue, which pretty much shut everything down. There have been a lot of personnel turnover in financial services recently, and really the past year or so. And I would say I'm so far pretty happy that we haven't noticed a big holdup from the financial services side, but there are new people in the process now, so there could be issues with that. We are still dealing with updating funding to match as bid amounts. That's something we're continuing to work with, planning on. Let's see, I said that I would address a question in the chat, which was estimate handling time. We tried to get estimates paid in accordance with state law, which is 30 days. We do try to keep the processing time up at headquarters construction to about a week or less. And we probably hit that on most projects, but there are complications that impact our ability to deliver that. I also noticed the Nat had a question about an estimate being held up due to payrolls. I think the question he has seems reasonable to me. That's something that we can look into, see if we can make changes if changes are needed. That is, compliance is still involved in the approval of estimates, so that's something that we may have to coordinate with them. But I think it's a valid comment from Danette. All right, railroads, we're going to have a district railroad coordinator meeting at the end of October. This is something that the headquarters railroad section puts together. That's the section in road design. They put that together with all the district railroad coordinators last year. I believe several PEs also attended. And it's meant to give guidance on how to administer the railroad contracts that the districts are asked to do. If y'all haven't received invites as PEs, you may want to talk to your coordinator or let us know or let the railroad group know, and we can try to get you in on that. One of the things we'll probably be going over is how to review railroad invoices. If y'all have looked at railroad invoices, they vary quite a bit from railroad to railroad, and it's not always clear on how to review those. So I think that's one of the topics we're going to try to hit. Work zone stuff. There is a temporary barrier standard in committee right now. It's updating the existing temporary barrier standard. It has more information on the deflection and more guidance on pinning barriers. TTC interim updates are currently at FHWA and should be approved anytime now. That's one of the main things on that one is the location of police in a moving operation. There's a few other things related to barriers. These are things that we worked with. Brett and I worked with traffic engineering to get updated on a fast track, because these are things that are impacting us currently, and we want to get those in place as soon as possible. There is going to be a full revamp of the TTCs to match the updated MUTCD. That's currently under development, but may be a couple of years before we actually see those. I think we have 2 years to implement the new MUTCD. So that's probably something that we're going to see maybe by the end of next year. And I think that covers everything on my slide that I wanted to go over.
Thank you, Dallas. Appreciate that update. Next up, we have Kris Wascom from the Materials Lab will give us a materials update.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your attendance today. So wanted to start out by kind of thanking Brian for bringing back these construction meetings. I think this is something that's been missing. It's really a good way for us to share information and just make sure we're all on the same page. So I'm glad to see these meetings are starting back up. And I'm not just saying that because Brian's my boss. I really think it's a great idea. So I want to start out just kind of recap our in-person meetings from the spring, a few topics we discussed then. So we talked about precast drainage structures. We've moved those from the fabrication unit to the mat lab. So if you have any questions or issues with catch basins, box culverts, please give me a call. We also talked about our specialty products list. That's something I wanted to highlight. So we have about 100 products on that list that are approved for use on DOTD projects that we don't necessarily have specifications for, but sometimes they fit the need. So just want you to be aware of that. Just go out, check that out. Those products, we generally would just add them by change order, follow the manufacturer's recommendations, and usually we wouldn't test those products, but we would ask if you use them, please create a sample ID just for tracking purposes. That way, if we see a product that's being used a lot, we can actually add it, create a spec for that product. So we talked about crushed concrete. We're no longer going to approve sources. We're just going to treat it on a project by project basis, just sample and test it like a borrowed stockpile. We talked about testing times. So testing times is something that we monitor here at the Mat Lab, and I have to say I'm really proud of our lab technicians. They do a great job of staying on top of their testing times and make sure they get those results back timely. But sometimes we have issues with equipment or just an influx of a certain type of material comes in. And we can, from time to time, have some I guess longer testing times. But just if you have a situation where either you have something that we need to expedite for whatever reason, it's something you're trying to rush on your project, or you notice that a sample is sitting, please reach out to us and we'll look into it and see what we can do to move it along. So we also had a lot of discussion about curing chambers and updates to the TR 226 procedure. And since those meetings, we've actually had some questions from industry. They've asked, does the curing chamber spec and the TR update contradict the QA manual? And so let's take a closer look at that. So the QA manual says that it's DOTD's responsibility to protect, cure, and transport the cylinders. And it requires field curing of the cylinders in accordance with TR 226. So we've had a spec out for a while, since 2021. It's 90105 special provision that required the contractors to provide a temperature controlled curing chamber. Recently, we updated TR 226 to require the use of the curing chamber for field curing cylinders. So our answer is no. We don't have a conflict with the QA manual. In fact, we think that the update to the TR 226 actually reinforces the spec. So contractor provides the curing chamber, DOTD uses the curing chamber. We are going to be updating all of our QA manuals. So we will try to clarify that in this soon to come updates. So another thing I wanted to touch on was the IRI. We have a few changes in the way that we certify our inertial profilers. We had to move our test track, so we were a little bit late this year getting those certifications done, but we have finished that. And what we've started this year, we're going to be recognizing third-party certifications. So some of our contractors work in neighboring states, and they require NCAT or TTI certification. So we're going to recognize those. There's no reason to require those people to be certified twice. But what that means is we usually put a decal on the equipment when we certify it through the MATLAB, and we're still going to do that for the ones we handle, but we don't want to put our decals on a machine that's certified by a third party. So we've actually created a list of approved inertial profilers that we're going to have it on our website, and that list will have the company name, the model number, the serial number, and the expiration date, and we'll be updating that as people have to get their as new people come in or they get the dates won't match up because we do ours in May. Some of these are in different times of the year, so we'll be updating that frequently. So if you have somebody come to one of your projects and they don't have the decal, you can go to that list, make sure that they're certified. And you can also have them provide you the certificate from that third party, either NCAT or TTI. And if you have any questions, just reach out to us and we'll try to sort through that. Another thing with the profilers, so the MATLAB does have a profiler that can be used for referee testing. So if you have a situation where you kind of doubt the results that you get back from the contractor, we can, it just doesn't seem to match up with when you ride the project, we can come out and rerun it just to compare the numbers. So if you need help with that, you can contact Melinda Bro. I think a lot of you have asked her for that help before. We also get a lot of calls for help with using ProVal to run the evaluation and to basically analyze the data. And Melinda's here to help with, to provide technical assistance with that also. But one of the questions that we seem to get a lot is, I guess, for recommendations about how to determine exclusions. And so Melinda, you know, it's not really Melinda's place to tell the project engineer how to, you know, the specifications give sort of some loose definitions of exclusions, and it's really up to the project engineer how he wants to apply that. So Melinda, you know, we don't feel it's Melinda's place to give those suggestions, but what we do want to work towards, though, is to be more consistent across the state with how we define those exclusions. We realize that it is a little vague in the spec, and it's being done differently across the state. So we're actually working on a publication, some guidelines to surface tolerance acceptance, and that's going to include some instructions on how to use ProVal. But it's also going to go into recommendations for how to determine exclusions. We've looked at what some other states are doing, and it varies from state to state, and definitely within Louisiana it varies. So we want to try to come up with some guidelines to try to be more consistent and kind of get rid of some of the frustrations, if you will, with the exclusions. So we're asking for volunteers. If you've got experience with ProVal, and you know you're confident in the way that you, I mean, I know how when I was a PE, I kind of came up with my method for how I determined exclusions. So if you've got experience with that, and you know, confident with how you define exclusions, please get in touch with me. We'd like to get a few experienced PEs and kind of form a task group. I don't want to just dictate to everybody how to do it. I'd like to see how other people are doing it across the state and kind of come to a consensus. So please reach out to me. So appreciate your time. That's all I got.
Thanks, Kris. And now we're going to move on to the E-construction section of this, and Patrick is going to lead us off, and then I'll finish us out.
Morning, everyone. Patrick Icenogle, E-construction. First off, as Sarah mentioned, the e-ticketing spec was finalized. It's just waiting the final approvals. One thing we're doing from our end is we're pushing to get all plants to make sure that they're set up with the e-ticketing portal. Also from our group, as everyone knows, we're migrating from site manager into headlight. We're also looking at what we can do on data cleanup efforts as far as consolidating material codes, cleaning up a lot of the associations, cleaning up some of the language, like on the sampling requirements, things like that from the sampling plan. And while we're doing all this, newer technologies allow for quick exchange of data. So we're looking at how we can best connect our reference data between all the different applications that we use, such that the same material codes, the same reference material, the same user IDs, the same everything will be available in not only Site Manager, but Headlight, Haul Hub, and any of the other applications that we have coming out that rely on any of that reference data. With Haul Hub, we've actually been working with them with the e-ticketing. They've created the eDOT portal. We did have some trainings over the last few months to get everyone familiar with that. In addition to the ticketing interface, they've also created a work zone tool that would allow your inspectors to go in and set up the actual limits of their work zone on a GPS map. And what that will do is when activities going on within the work zone limits, it will actually send notifications to Waze and other traffic applications to notify the motoring public. This also allows for your really large work zones can be broken down into individual pieces. And those individual pieces will toggle on notifications depending on if e-tickets are collected within the realm of that work zone, or we're also working with getting equipment within that work zone connected. So if there's any active equipment, construction equipment going on within that work zone, it will toggle it on. So just ways to try and enhance safety, enhance notifications to the motoring public. In addition to that, Haul Hub has been working on creating a single upload point for certificates. So our CC, CA, CDs. So instead of having to itemize it as samples, how we're currently doing, we're looking at ways of can we actually get the suppliers, when they're sending these certificates, to just send them directly to the portal and associate with the project or associate with the plant? So that's kind of the next step we're looking at is how can we automate that from the supplier end? Right now, they just released where they have an upload point. So if anyone's interested in just testing, uploading from the DOT side, we can play with that aspect as well. Another tool that Hub's working on in conjunction with Esri is a tool for a dynamic conversion of GPS to station and offset. And we're hoping that this isn't just a Hub specific tool or an Esri specific tool. We're hoping it's actually a tool that can be placed into all of our different applications, headlight included, such that anytime you input a station and offset, it will mirror the corresponding GPS coordinates of that. Or anytime you capture something via GPS, it will mirror the corresponding station and offset of that for your particular project. And all this is based on the design file. So just another tool to assist those out in the field with documentation. As well, Hub's been creating, we're calling them AI assisted summary reports. Right now they have one for ticketing data for your asphalt and concrete badge tickets, where it will basically generate a summary of your ticketing information for the day. We're working on including those for the couple of projects we have with connected equipment. And the next step of that process is if they're generating a daily summary report, can we get that information automatically incorporated as a narrative observation in headlight? So that's the next step as well. And just to finish it off with the connected equipment, we do have, I know RJ Daigle and D&J have graciously volunteered a couple of projects with getting the equipment connected. It sounded like Gilchrist and Diamond B are jumping on board as well. So we really appreciate those stepping up to try this new technology. But we are still looking for any contractors that want to trial a connected equipment project. All costs are covered under a federal grant, and this is for informational and research purposes only. So all data is shared between the contractor and the department. This is basically looking at ways of pulling information directly off your equipment in the field. One for safety aspects to send notifications to Waze, and we're looking at other safety aspects of actually getting information connected within the work zone for notifications of inspectors and how can equipment recognize how close it is to other equipment, things like that. In addition to quality control and quality assurance enhancements. Just coming from the wealth of information that can come off of these pieces of equipment. So a lot of new stuff coming down the pipeline. We're hoping to generate, user-friendly reports and user-friendly tools and interfaces for a lot of this, because a lot of it is just massive amounts of data that is very difficult to digest without putting it through some type of filter and some type of, interface to make it more user-friendly and more user-readable. So with that, I'll turn it over to Les.
Thanks, Patrick. Yeah, I agree. There's some pretty amazing stuff coming from Hub. If you didn't get a chance, the last newsletter I sent out, I did a short article at the end of that talked about some of the things Hub's doing, and with the AI report, really cool stuff. As an ex-inspector, I really appreciate it. Like, I can see where our inspectors are going to benefit from it. And so geolocation, that is just a, it's just an update from last time. So we just want to reiterate that when you're taking observations in Headlight Fieldbook, when your inspectors are out there, go ahead and make sure that they are capturing the GPS coordinates correctly. So one thing we've heard, or I've seen actually in the field, is that a lot of inspectors are using their cell phones to take the picture and then airdropping that image over to their iPad later, or maybe back at the office. We don't encourage that practice unless you're using the Headlight Fast Capture app. If you have an iPhone, they have an app that would work on your cell phone for doing that specifically, which captures that geolocation. If you do that, then you'll have to go in and adjust those GPS locations in the observations to be more accurate and reflect where the work was. So the best solution there is capturing that at the point of inspection in the field with your iPad is the best way to do that. all observations are, will benefit from that GPS, but particularly images and videos, we just want to make sure that that data is correct. And if it ever comes to a claim or something like that, it's really better for us to have the accurate GPS there. On the other side of that, the GPS that's included in the asphalt roadway report, that is very beneficial for our materials lab in particular, if they have to go back on a project a year or two later and do some testing, maybe friction ratings. That gives them, you know, obviously the station stakes get taken out at the end of the job, and those roadway reports reference the stations most of the time. And so that gives them a way to actually go to the GPS location of where that sublot was laid and be able to do the testing more accurately. So if you could remind your inspectors to be doing that, we'd really appreciate that. Sample plan. Now, obviously, you've probably heard a lot of information about that recently. It has been a big push from our side here at headquarters to start introducing that into your projects. A lot of people have started using it kind of after the fact. If you're in the middle of a project, starting to use that because you have to add your material codes there so that it shows up in your line items if you're using the materials app to sample with. And so we've seen a little uptick in usage, but really what we're talking about here is at the beginning of the project, like before the pre-con, building out that sample plan in this software, the headlight software, instead of some of the spreadsheets or other documents you've been using before. So I did do some research on this because we've had some, you know, there's been some reluctance to get in there and build the sample plans, or maybe not understanding exactly how it's supposed to work. I totally get that. That happens with every piece of software that I've ever tried to learn, right? It's you're a little reluctant to get into it. But recently I requested some of the documents, and they were mostly Excel sheets that some of the district labs were using to do sample plans. And they're very similar to what's in the headlight sample plan with the exception of one thing, and that is having to choose material codes like specific or categories at the beginning of the job. And because people have not been choosing those to build the sample plans in the past, it seems like that the reluctance there is that you don't know the material codes. I'm not going to go deep off into that, but I will let you know I did in the last month e-construction webinar. I did an in-depth dive of how you can search those material codes and find what you're looking for, and try to, in that training session, try to relate the old way to the new way. And maybe that'll help some of you get in there and start to use this. It is a little more time consuming at the beginning of a project to build the sample plan in headlight. But what we've seen, and we've said this before, is that it really benefits the inspectors, especially it's inspectors that are not as experienced and don't know those material codes. It's a lot easier for them to sample from the dashboard that you build for them at the beginning of the job. This is, you know, we've talked about in the past, legislative audit has hit us for the past several years on, you know, the projects being turned in. And a lot of that is because they get hung up on that 2059 ATM report. And so this is one of the steps that construction section has presented to mitigate those issues. And so, you know, this goes all the way up to the secretary. He knows about it. He will be looking for sample plans built in headlight in the future. And so we just want to make sure that we're not getting dinged by a legislative audit, and we're handling that to the best of our ability. We have several trainings on our YouTube page for this, detailed trainings. If that doesn't work for you and you have to build one and you need more one-on-one, shoot the e-construction team an email. We will make arrangements to get on live with you to help you get through some of that sample plan stuff. Headlights obviously willing to help there as well. We've been talking about, we will be given a document at the end of this. It has links. It has that DOTD e-construction email built into that document. So Portal. Portal is Headlight's read-only version. This has been around since we started using Headlight Fieldbook, but we were not really given that access out at first. We have opened that up, and contractors over the past year or so have been requesting access to Portal so that they could see the images and stuff that we're capturing. Totally fine with that. It is a read-only version. Now, there was a change recently we found out that the portal version Headlight had given us showed everything up to the minute, just like we have. Although I do understand for a contractor that could be beneficial in tracking quantities and stuff, it is just not good for us on our side, because if something is taken that's not supposed to be there, is not given that PE time to review that and make sure that it is accurately, describing what happened on the job and what work items we were paying for. So the change was made, and that is only showing anything in an approved report now. And that's the way Site Manager was. It's the way it's supposed to be set up. But with that, we want to reiterate, if you are a PE and you are waiting 30 days and right before the estimate due, you go in and authorize all of those diaries, the contractor is not able to see that. And so we want this to benefit both sides. So, our standard advice is within 3 days, try to get a daily work report approved all the way through Site Manager so that it shows up in portal. Really over a cup of coffee in the morning, you can review reports, and the next morning after that inspector does it, it is a great time to get it in the system so everyone can be aware and see it. It really, when I come from inspection, my reports got approved pretty quickly, and it really helped with the communication between me and the project manager and being able to keep quantities, verified and make sure we were both on the same page. So I really just want to put that out there and let you guys know that that needs to be done. iPad service. So in our last round of meetings, we heard loud and clear there were a few areas that are having lots of problems with service, particularly District 58. They sent us a very detailed list afterwards of the problems they were having. And I believe even an officer or two in District 08 sent us some stuff on it. And so we have been communicating that to Headlight. We believe they're on to a solution for some of that, maybe. They do have the ability to add a different carrier now, which would be AT&T, because we currently use Verizon. And so the problem is that it requires a hard swap of the SIM card. So it's kind of like an in-person thing. So we're trying to work out some logistics there. I believe Headlight is working on getting me some of those SIM cards so that we can do some testing and see if that's even worth it. To switch those out in some areas. Just some areas AT&T works better in Verizon, and some areas Verizon works better in AT&T. So look for more testing from us in that, and maybe some more info coming out on that here in the future. Also, the ACDMS grant that Patrick has been really working on, he has submitted for review. If we are able to get some of those funds, one of the things Patrick has in mind to do with that is to try some alternative methods for getting internet out on your projects, right? And that might be a Starlink setup, or there are other things that are out there now. And so hopefully we will get some of those funds and be able to get that out to you, maybe solve some of those problems. YouTube page. So I mentioned at the beginning of this that this meeting is being recorded, and that we're going to get this out to, I'll edit it up and get it posted to our YouTube page. I posted the link to that earlier in the chat on the first meeting that we tried. It'll be in the document we send out after this, so you'll be able to get to that fairly easily. We try to make that as easy as possible. It's all chaptered out to try to get you to the information so you don't have to watch a whole video that might be an hour long or try to scroll through it. In the description of each video, it kind of tells what we talked about there. Go, if you can, go to that website, like and subscribe there, just so that you can get notifications when we post new stuff. We really try to keep the most updated training or even issues that we're having. We try to update that in the webinars every month, and those are all on that YouTube page. Just a couple of things. I actually found a section where we can go in and view some of the data for the YouTube page. So over the last year and a half, we have had a little over 2,500 views. Even in the last month, there's been 117 of our videos viewed. And so that tells me that we are getting some information out to you. As you can see here, starting in the spring of this year, when Brian had us come out in person to these construction roundup meetings, and then obviously what we've been doing in e-construction over the last year and a half with the newsletters and YouTube page and Q&A sessions and micro-learning sessions, is we are really trying to fix the communication issues that we have and really get the information to you in a timely manner so that we're all on the same page, because we all hear the problems like, well, they don't do it that way in this district and they don't do it that way in this district, right? So if we're all on the same page and we're able to communicate that down from headquarters, and back up, not just down from headquarters, but also back up from the districts to what we need to do, we really feel like that'll be beneficial. So hopefully these tools that we are utilizing are helping you in the field. And, you know, even if not everyone in your group is reviewing those YouTube videos or coming to the webinars, that kind of thing, we still feel like that if one person is, then they're sharing that information out to the rest of the group. And so that's one way to increase that communication in your office. Fieldbook usage. Like we've been going on, I think close to 7 years now since the pilot project. So we've been in this for a while. And so we really, I know you've heard us say several times, we're trying to get the percentage of images up and make sure that we're documenting these projects. You just don't understand how helpful that is, especially to our area engineers and management here when we're trying to review change orders or review claims that come up to us. That data that you're capturing in the field is very beneficial. So please try to encourage your inspectors to take lots of images and videos. The percentage did go up a little bit from the last meeting, but not, you know, maybe 1 or 2%. It wasn't a whole lot. We did notice there are a few PE offices around the state that are still virtually not documenting at all with images or videos. And so that probably needs to be looked at and rectified. But let me see, let me switch to the next slide here. We have just hit a big milestone over the life of Headlight. We have just surpassed 5 million total observations. That's a lot of data. Now, not all of those are images, obviously, but with the image and video data, I mean, this is a lot of stuff that we can look through and look for trends and try to find ways that we can help the process through data. And so we appreciate y'all, applaud y'all for that milestone. Just keep up the good work there. Next, this graphic shows each cluster is a district. These totals are mostly image totals from the past, 3 months from May to the end of July. And so what we have is in the middle, you have the district number. On the edge here, these are the each unit and how many images they have taken over the past 3 months. And then it gives a percentage here. And I believe in the last meeting we shared, we're looking for like 15 to 20% of your total observations that were captured. So total observations in the past 3 months with your images. And we're trying to get that up to around 15 to 20%. We still have some offices that, some districts that are down from that. Some of the data, when I kind of looked, deeper into this, like I got to looking at District 61 in particular. Well, I looked at everybody, but this is the one that stood out. I do want to give some props here. So last summer from 5/1/23 to 7/31/23, they were at about 4.5%. And so they've more than doubled their image taking year over year in the same time frame. So we just want to give a shout out to them and appreciate the work they're doing there. So anyway, long story short, capturing images, getting that data is beneficial across the board for us. And so we want to just encourage that. This graphic is shared out in a link in that document that we'll be sharing to you guys.
Again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining, especially with our technical difficulty in the thing ending and jumping back on. Looks like we got 3/4 of the people came back, so I appreciate that. I do want to say that anything that was not discussed or that you have questions about, we're going to send out a document after this that's going to have a breakdown of everything we talked about. If there's something you want to see in the next webinar, let us know. If there's a questions you want to address, let us know. And that's kind of what this forum is going to become. It's going to be the last 30 days, the outlook, any updates, any new specifications that are coming out. It would be like our, equivalent to our old construction memos, where if we had issues that we needed to let people know about, this is going to be that forum. So, we encourage you guys to participate in this and dig in, and, we're only going to get better from here. So thank you, everybody.